Good morning. Welcome back. A Fox News alert. You are looking live at Prince George's County in Maryland, where President Trump is, you can see, just about ready to land at Joint Base Andrews any moment now. Are they touched down already? It's hard to tell because it's dark. Anyway, this is following his surprise trip to our troops overseas.
Obviously, we're going to talk about this throughout the course of the morning. There was a lot of talk that the president had not yet visited troops overseas in a war zone. And in fact, just yesterday, a number of the media was saying he needs to go on this trip.
He's been facing a lot of criticism for that.
Right. And then a few minutes, 2 hours later, they all realized, hey, you know, we saw the president's plane over England. He's going somewhere. And obviously, Iraq. Later on, Germany was the destination. Let's deal in Rebecca Grant right now. She is national military analyst and international relations expert. And Rebecca, while we look at this image on our screen right now, why was this trip so important?
Well, number one, he has made that great gesture of being with our armed forces overseas, and that's going to energize him as well. It's great to meet with those soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, but it's a big gesture going to Iraq. That's a big symbol for the Defeat ISIS coalition. We have over 70 other nations in that coalition, and this is going to encourage them going forward as we wrap up that last bit of Defeat ISIS and continue on in the region.
Dr. Grant, the president has faced a lot of criticism, as we just mentioned, kind of twofold. In part because he hadn't been overseas to visit the troops, but also as of late because of the decision to pull out of Syria. What do you make of, just in general, all of the criticism?
Yes, he has been criticized, but to me this shows his steady hand. He gave us a little more insight into the Syria position, where he said he has given them enough time, and in fact they have got it down to about 2,000 fighters left in the middle Euphrates River Valley. ISIS controls less than 1% of the territory originally. An official there said they've gone from caliphate to the cave, and I think that's a significant success. Mattis was a big part of that, and so was Trump for driving that policy forward.
Right, you're watching the president's plane, Air Force One, taxiing right now at Joint Base Andrews. Even the president's plane needs to taxi. He's not immune from it. Dr. Grant, what do troops get out of a visit like this?
Exactly, and he's taxiing into that special hangar. They really get a sense that the U.S. is behind them, and then Trump is going to do more for them, too. What they most want is readiness and the tools at hand to do their job. So they know from his visit that he's going to take special attention with the defense budget, make sure they have the training and the tools they need to carry out their missions. That's why they're in the armed forces. That's what they really want from the president.
It was also nice to see Melania go along for the trip.
Yes, absolutely. What a great gesture that was. And she was a fantastic presence there. That's an arduous trip, a night trip, a difficult landing, a very different kind of approach going into Al-Assad, and then on up to Ramstein. So I think the troops were especially excited to see her as well, and good on her for making that trip over the holiday. Wonderful gesture from the United States to the world.
We're going to stay with this while we await the president. You never know. Maybe he'll say something as he's disembarking.
He's done that a time or two.
Yeah, he's known to do that. What does the president get out of this, Dr. Grant?
Oh, he got a lot out of this, because when he stopped at Ramstein, which is the headquarters of U.S. Air Forces in Europe, he would have been able to talk about the situation with Russia, with Africa, and to talk about some other subjects as well. And be sure that down at Al-Assad, he touched base with our commanders. So President Trump is coming back with a very fresh perspective on the situation in Iraq and the training, on the situation in Syria, and a fresh perspective on what's going on in Europe and with Russian aggression, too. So he'll come back informed and energized and all the more ready to tackle those international and defense policy issues. Great trip for him. He'll have counted it as very much worth his time.
Dr. Grant, I'm curious of your opinion on pulling troops, or potentially pulling troops, out of Afghanistan. We know that this has been discussed. That's no secret. And it's been nearly 18 years. Would you do that right now?
Well, that's a question on the table. And don't forget, we have a special representative. Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad is our U.S. rep to the talks there. If anyone can sort that out, it will be him. President Trump augmented forces there not long after he did so in Syria back in 2017. So it may be time to reshuffle. But remember, we aren't pulling our military presence either from Iraq, Syria, or Afghanistan. We have huge air power, surveillance, special ops, ready to go back in and engage at any point in time. And key to it all, we're training Afghan forces to carry out their own security, just as we've done with Iraq. So moving the troop levels around is one thing, but by no means are we moving our commitments from that area. And we have, as Trump said, the power to go back in there and do what we need to anytime. It's much more complex.
They're obviously getting ready to have President Trump come out of Air Force One right now. But to follow up on Jillian's question to you, Dr. Grant, do you think the president experienced anything over the course of the last 24 hours that might change his mind on the decisions he made over the course of the last week?
Well, Todd, we've heard that the forces in Iraq were very glad when he said that we are not taking that security assistance mission out of Iraq. But I have a feeling that what he learned from the briefings will confirm his decision, simply because I think he looked at all that material very carefully to start with. The forces of ISIS really have been largely defeated, and we know that rebuilding is a matter of attacking them in the cyber realm, making sure they can't take over businesses and refund their operations. His commanders will have told him this, and I think what he's learned from the immediate operational briefings he received will have confirmed his view that it's time to make a change and reshuffle with the Syria policy.
And if you're just joining us right now, just to reset for a moment here, we're taking a live look at photos from Joint Base Andrews right there on your screen. That's where we are awaiting the president any moment now to step off the plane, as you can see, returning from that overseas trip, that surprise trip with Melania Trump in Iraq to surprise the troops over there. And then they made a stop to refuel in Germany, visited troops there as well. And we are joined by Dr. Rebecca Grant. Dr. Grant, what do you think is next for the president?
Well, he has to deal with the shutdown, but he also has a defense budget to deal with. High on his list is going to be, will he create the U.S. Space Force? We understand there'll be a new command, but what will happen with the overall organization of the Space Force? And can he get that defense budget and his priorities through the Congress now that the Democrats will control the House? So he has a number of issues there. I also think, Jillian, he will be taking a hard look at Afghanistan. Though he didn't visit there, he will have talked with some commanders. Afghanistan will have come up, and I think he'll be doing a deep dive on what he sees next in Afghanistan, checking in on the negotiations and also on the military situation there.
Do you think he will be visiting Afghanistan at any point in the near future?
He might. It's a possibility. Who knows? If he does, it'll be a surprise for sure, just like this visit was.
Again, as we await the president stepping off of Air Force One, I think there may be some people out there who heard the media criticism of President Trump not visiting Iraq, Afghanistan, all those places in the Middle East and war zones, and then saw him on a plane a few hours later and thought that that trip just happened immediately. That's not how this works. How much time and effort does it take to sort of plan a trip like this, even though to us it seems like a surprise and something that was impromptu?
Oh, you're right, Todd. And he hinted early this fall that he might be making that visit. But it takes a minimum of days and days to plan this. Forces have to go in. You have to get clearance for the airspace. It all has to be planned out. And, of course, it has to be coordinated there on the ground in Iraq. But it's something that the military is very, very good at doing, the Secret Service as well. And so I think he's done a super job. But he did take an awful lot of criticism, whether it was not flying down in the helicopter on the Paris visit over Armistice Day. He's taken a great deal of criticism over the military parade and all this, but I think what we see here today is he really does care about our forces overseas. There was never any real question, but he's proved it, and it shows us again how engaged he is in foreign policy and security. He is a natural at this international security business, and it's a good thing because he has a lot on his plate with the national security issues.
And Dr. Grant, I mean, we're taking a look at the video from the president's trip. He's shaking hands with the troops there, and it seems like the troops really respect him from the outside looking in, obviously. Now, there was some discrepancy between Jim Mattis and President Trump over the decision to pull troops out of Syria. But what do you make of the relationship between the president and our troops?
Oh, it's a home run. The soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, they love him. He's a very charismatic individual. He cares. You see him taking selfies, listening to each individual he's meeting with. He's talking about what's your specialty, what do you do, how long have you been here. I think he's done a wonderful job one-on-one with the armed forces. Really a home run for him on the one-on-one.
Again, we are awaiting the president walking out that door down the steps. But I understand that they do have snacks on Air Force One, so maybe he's just enjoying his time on the plane a little bit longer. They've got beds, snacks, showers, all that good stuff. Rebecca, again, while we have you here, we want to sort of hit all the topics involved with this trip. Did you see the attacks on the president for the signing of the MAGA hats by the president? The troops have these hats. What do you make of that whole situation?
Oh boy, that's going a bit low. I think if you are the president and a soldier hands you something to sign, you say, I'll sign it. Absolutely. That's something that he was right to do, no question. I think his interactions with the troops have been excellent, and he really knows how to do that. You can see it in their faces. Those are happy faces, a lot of selfies. I think they enjoyed him very, very much, and the First Lady as well.
Dr. Grant, I'm curious if there's anything else you would like to see, say over the course, just for argument's sake, of the next year, 2019, what more would you like to see the president get done as far as international relations go?
Well, top of my list is always North Korea. Did you see the tweet around Christmas Eve where he's meeting with our special rep, Steve Biggan, and another official? They're talking about North Korea, and the president hints progress is being made. We're all waiting to hear what Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, will say in his traditional New Year's speech, so I'd like to see some progress there. I'd also like to see Trump meet with Putin. They have a lot to talk about, and things are going downhill fast with Russia. Their aggressive military actions, these hypersonic missile tests, but they may want to talk about arms control at some point. Ukraine remains out there as well. And I'd like to see a final reshuffling of our forces in Syria. I'd like to see the Defeat ISIS coalition start to do some rebuilding, and I would love to see an exit strategy for Afghanistan.
Let's grow the party here. Let's deal in RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh, thanks for getting up with us this morning. You obviously are watching the events unfolding on your screen right now. What did you make of the president's trip?
Oh, this was a remarkable event by both the president and the first lady, thanking our troops. You know, it's rare that we truly sit back and reflect at the magnitude of what they do, the sacrifices they've made, and the accomplishments.
Kayleigh, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second here. Hang on, because you can see President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump getting off of the plane right now at Joint Base Andrews. Again, the plane touched down about 10-15 minutes ago from that surprise trip to Iraq to surprise the troops over there. On the way home, they stopped in Germany to refuel, met with troops there as well, and now you can see them walking down to meet the media.
And obviously we are awaiting the president to see if he says anything upon returning to American soil. You know the mainstream media is going to attack something based upon this trip, and I think I just realized what it is. They were holding hands. The mainstream media has been all over that lately, and Melania is wearing sunglasses at night. Just wait for that to be the focus of this trip, not the good work overseas, not the meeting with the troops, not what was accomplished over the course of the last 24 hours.
Let's go back to Kayleigh for a second while we continue to watch these pictures to see if the president will speak. It looks like he's not going to, but again, you never know. Kayleigh, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You can finish your thought.
No, you're exactly right. You know, the media will attack, as they so often do. But this was a moment not about the media. This was a moment about our troops and reflecting on the fact that they have regained 20,000 square miles of territory, 3 million people liberated because of our servicemen and women who make the ultimate sacrifice each and every day. And for the president to go over there and honor them on Christmas of all days, it was incredibly special. And to see the media really caught in their tracks, saying he was the first president not to visit troops since 2002. They were exactly wrong, because he was in the air on his way there that very moment as they crafted those headlines.
Kayleigh, what did you make of the kerfuffle over the MAGA hats?
Ridiculous. You know, they continually going low, signing MAGA hats. These troops were so excited to see the president, so excited to see the first lady, wanted a signature on their hats. This was incredible. It was remarkable. And to make that the focus, it really demeans exactly what this was about, which is honoring our troops.
Kayleigh, you know, it's been a rough couple of days. You could say that, just because of the criticism that the president has faced for his decision to pull troops out of Syria. Obviously, not everybody criticizing that decision, but we know that Jim Mattis didn't necessarily agree. What do you make of the criticism?
So the president gave us a lot of insight into why he made this decision. It was very methodical. He said in his speech just yesterday, I gave the generals 6 months. I gave another 6 months. When we had retaken 99% of territory in Syria, I said it's time to bring our men and women home. And he said Saudi Arabia is stepping up, Turkey is stepping up, and we're right there across the border in Iraq, ready if needed. So I think that elucidation really explained a lot. He's someone who made a promise to this country when he ran on getting out of Syria. He made good on that promise, and I think it was a very smart, methodical, wise decision.
The president has been criticized for not making this trip sooner, but if you look at the course of the last number of years, a few decades, in fact, the president's sort of right in the middle when he visited a war zone. 705 days for President Trump. Obama, to his credit, did visit 77 days, but President Bush, 1,041 days, President Clinton, 1,088 days, and President Bush number 43, 671 days. I think I got that correct. Did I mix up the Bushes? I may have mixed up the Bushes.
Regardless,
the point is that he's right in the middle there.
That's right. He's right in the middle, but nevertheless endured all of that criticism. But he made the trip. He's someone who our servicemen and women have high approval ratings with the president among our servicemen and women for a good reason, because he's someone who's continually praising their efforts, continually bringing military personnel into the White House, visiting them across the country. To suggest that the president somehow was not, honoring our troops appropriately, I think is completely wrong-headed. And you're right to point out that he was right there in the middle.
Kayleigh, I asked this question to Dr. Rebecca Grant. I want to get your opinion as well. A lot of the conversation has been focused on Syria, our troops in Syria, but people have also been talking about Afghanistan and whether or not it's time to pull troops out of there. What do you think? What's your opinion?
That's right. I don't want to get ahead of the president. That will be his call. But he was very clear yesterday in the speech, if we had any sort of clue, this is not about nation building. We have been in the Middle East for quite some time, put extraordinary investment, and it's time for other countries to step up. He said it's time for neighboring countries with regard to Syria to step up. This isn't about nation building. And he made that promise to our country to get out of these wars, to get out of foreign entanglements. He did so in Syria. We'll see the decision he made in Afghanistan. But number one, first and foremost, are the promises he made to the people to bring those troops home and to secure the region as best as possible before doing so.
As we watch Marine One taxiing on its way to taking the president back to the White House, we want to thank Dr. Rebecca Grant and Kayleigh McEnany for taking their time with us this morning to break down the events of not only today, but obviously a very historic last 24 hours. Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as you saw, the president